Hello, hello, welcome back. I'm Melissa and we are going to do our Plant Q&A today. I have my computer here with the questions and I'm going to set this to the side. I have a little chair down here holding my computer. I think instead of bringing a bunch of plants to do for this video, I'm just going to randomly grab stuff that I need to do, whether it be an upsize. I have some pond here for my first project. I may do I don't know. I'm just going to grab plants as we go and see how many we get through. I'm going to try and answer a lot of these questions. I took time to put them all into a notes category, and I have them kind of separated out into like general questions. I had some on moss poles. I had a lot of pond questions, which I am going to make a separate video on pond here in I believe a couple more months. Now that I am getting my fertilizer regimen with pond and I have my meter to test with, I feel like a couple more months will give me a good amount of time to figure out my solution and how to go about all of that. And then the last set of questions are more personal questions, and I had several of those. I would say I had more general plant questions. I also just did a Q&A, I think a couple months ago. I will link that one down below, and I have a couple other Q&As on my channel that are a little bit older, but I will link all those down below. Thank you so much to everyone who sent in a question. I really do appreciate it, and I'm excited to get started. I feel like there are some good questions here, and yeah, I'm just super excited. I'm excited to get plant tours done while I answer your questions. The first little set of plants I'm doing, so these are my seedlings that I crossed. I have one more that's still in my cabinet that's a little bit smaller, but I might end up letting that one go. I'm gonna keep these two for me. This is my Clarinervium and Potato radiatum seedlings. I got 3 seeds when I crossed her, and it took 10 months for the berries to form, and I harvested these on 10/18, and this one has another leaf coming in. I'll show you the plant. I hope it looks similar to the Delta Force when it gets bigger. It's a beautiful leaf. I'm very excited for it. These are currently in sphagnum moss. I've had these in here since they started as seeds, and they're very rooted in here. I'm ready to get these out and planted into pond. I feel like I'm kind of giving these guys a bit of a watering inconsistency, leaving them in moss. I had some that had some yellowing tips, I think probably just from edema. I think they probably just absorbed too much water at once and busted some of those cells, so they've since discolored. So I think pond will be the right substrate for this plant. I'm just gonna pot them up together and, ooh, more light. I was worried. Not all of my grow lights are on yet. I'm filming very early. I haven't filmed this early in a while. It is 10:30 currently in the morning. I'm normally filming like right around noon when a lot of the sun is coming in. So I'm gonna try and get done filming this video at noon so that it's not like super intense when I repot. So I think I still have a couple more lights, like this side of my poles aren't on yet. So if you see more flashing, more lights are coming on. But this is just a 5-inch self-watering planter. That's what I use, generally what I use to start my plants out in pond. So the first question is a little bit of a controversial question. I could go on about this topic for an entire video. If you guys want to know more about my thoughts on this and just in general what I think, let me know. It's about like de-influencing. I'm very opinionated on this topic. I don't want to offend anyone. These are just like my thoughts on the situation, but yeah, I'm gonna try to not say too much. So I'm gonna start with the planty general questions first. And up first is, hi, just very curious in why you don't get sponsors. Almost every other plant influencer does. Love you so much, by the way. And thank you, love you too. So it's not the fact that I don't get sponsors, I actually just turn them down. I've gotten pretty much all the companies that you see here on YouTube that other people promote. They have reached out to me and I have just politely declined. for my own reasons. I just feel like, one, not all companies are like this. And I just feel like they're asking too much of me when it's a thing when you're like communicating back and forth via email. Like it can go on for weeks, months before you guys even agree to everything in the contract. But sometimes they just like to throw things in there that you didn't discuss, and it's not really okay because they're trying to cheat you out of what you should be getting paid. So they'll throw in there like content rights, full rights to my content. They need to pay extra for that because they can pretty much take my content and do with whatever they please with it. They can run ads with it, create their own content, use it on their social media. So that is not something we discussed, and you're not going to get full rights to my content and not pay me for that. Another thing that I see is exclusivity, which means I am only exclusive to them for X amount of time, whichever it states in the contract. If another brand that is similar to theirs wants to work with me, I can't work with them. I'm only exclusive to this brand. So if they're asking for exclusivity, that means you should be getting paid extra for that, and they like to sneak that in there in their terms. I mean, a contract is a legal document. You can get sued, or they just won't pay you because you didn't fulfill all the terms. So basically, you've done this content for them, and because you didn't agree to everything in the terms, they could just not pay you. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I'm finding a lot of brands that have reached out, a lot of companies, businesses, they don't want to pay me that much. Say like $200. Yeah, $200 is a lot of money, but in order for me to take time to go through the contract, emails back and forth, negotiating on the terms as far as the creative side of it. Is there certain things that they want me to say that's in the contract? And then that time that goes into editing the content and then uploading it, and then you having to respond to comments and questions potentially about the product. And I don't know, it's a lot of work for, I feel like $200 is a small amount of money for what some of these brands expect of me, because not only is some of them wanting me to just post on YouTube, but some of them even ask me like, oh, and you need to create a short with it. Oh, and you need to post on your Instagram and TikTok. I've had some brands ask me to do all of my platforms for like one small fee. That's a lot of content to make. Like YouTube long form is one thing, but like having to create additional content and give you like my max amount of following to like expose your brand to, like that's a lot to ask for. And I just don't feel like it's worth it. I don't feel like I'm respected that much. And I feel like a lot of the emails I get, they just throw the money at me. Like, here's this, or they expect me to do it for free. I would say 90% of my emails I get, they want me to do it for free. Or they just want to gift me a product. Like, no, if I want your product, I will buy it myself. I do not need to be gifted this product and expect to make content in return when I can just buy the product myself. Like, I'm not going to give you free exposure. Especially if that's what you're expecting out of me. I just feel like I'm just not respected as a creator. A lot of it is why I don't do sponsors. And then jumping on the whole affiliate commission bandwagon thing, the only affiliate that I am a part of is Amazon, and oops, I accidentally ripped a root. I appreciate everyone who buys something from my Amazon link because it really does help me out. And the thing with Amazon is I'm not selling products. It's there, like if anyone buys stuff through my link, it helps. The commission that I get does help support this channel and me to be able to do this. But it's not like I'm selling products from my Amazon. I'm not advertising it. I'm not doing the comment for commission links on Instagram. Like that has just gotten too far in my opinion. And you think about it, like 10% commission is what a lot of these brands offer, 10% of sales. I've seen some go as high as 20%, and I've seen some go as like 5%. 10% commission on a sale of an item isn't a lot, But if you sell a lot of the product, you can actually make a decent amount of money. And that's the thing. I don't work for these brands. Like, I'm not on their payroll. Affiliates can make or break your company, essentially. I think brands that do affiliates, I don't want anything to do with them, in all honesty, because say like, okay, say they're offering you this product. They want to send you this product for free and they want you to join their affiliate program. So essentially you get 10% commission of sales. Well, how do you get sales? You have to sell and promote the product a lot. You have to use it a lot. You have to spend time making content around their product. All that time adds up, and essentially you're not being paid for any of that. You are just selling for the business. You are making them money. Meanwhile, you are getting a small commission for all the work that you do. And to me, that's not worth it. Because the other side of that too is you don't know if the brand is being honest with how much sales are being generated from your link. Unless there's a way to track it, you really don't know. And then, like, you really don't know these people. You don't know the people who run this business. You don't know their practices. You don't know how they do things. You're basically just saying yes to any and everything that you get because you can earn some commission from it. And they may not even pay you what you really are, like what you actually sold for them. So that's why I really don't do affiliates. I've had bad experiences before. I've done free gifted like collabs when I first started, and those companies took advantage of the content that I made and they ran ads with it illegally. Like, I could have sued them if I wanted to go to all that trouble to really do that. I see these companies being promoted today, and one of them, well, they both offer affiliates, and it's just not right. Like, I feel like every time I am nice and I do things for free or just to be nice to support a brand or small business, I usually get taken advantage of, and they run with anything that I make. They try to make it look like, oh, I'm using their product. Look at my plant growth because of their product. They essentially are trying to market their product based off of my hard work that I've done growing my plants. And I don't know, I've just been rubbed the wrong way several times, and I would rather just be my own brand, my own business. Like, I'm technically a business now, and I hope to sell and grow plants and have this plant shop be a side hustle that I can do to actually do this as a job full time, because really the only money that I'm getting paid is through YouTube AdSense, and it's not very much, and it's very up and down each month. No 2 months are the same, and I'm relying heavily on that to be able to do this. So it's something I stress and I think about every day because I don't know how sustainable this is. You guys know I left my nursing career because I was super stressed, and trying to do this while growing has been challenging. I did have like some savings that let me be able to do this for a little bit, and now that I'm making some money from YouTube AdSense, it's really not as much as one would think, and I'm very honest about that. It's really hard to do this full time unless you're getting a ton of additional revenue coming in from other outlets, whether it be affiliates, brand deals. That's where bulk of the money comes from. And since I'm not doing that, it's really challenging. I just feel like it's just, I don't know. I just value my time so much, and I value being honest to you, and I never want to sell you anything for any kind of commission. And I feel like if the right sponsor came along, then I'm definitely open to sponsors, but I'm not open to any and everything that comes into my inbox. I'm very, 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 very selective. And I have turned down brands that I was excited about working with, which was a disappointment because, again, I just felt like they were just trying to take advantage of me, and I'm not going to let a brand do that. So yeah, if the right company comes, oops, I added too much. If the right company comes along and I really like them, I like the product or whatever else, then I would be happy to try and work out a deal, but there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that goes into the emails and the contracts and everything. But yeah, I would say a lot of the sponsors that you see on videos have reached out to me. So I don't know. And sometimes you just have to do your homework too, because some of these brands, if you go onto their social media, and you read through comments that people have written on their like social media platforms, if there's like negative comments, if they have turned comments off, that is a sign that you probably should not be working with the brand. So I'm always scoping them out. Like if someone reaches out to me, I'll just, investigate who they are as a brand. So yeah, that is my little 2 cents. And I don't want to offend anyone. Like if people do sponsors left and right, like get your bag, do your thing. I just know, to me, like I just don't see that being worth my time and stress, but to each their own. So yeah, it's a little bit of a touchy subject to me. I really do think the world of influencer marketing is probably, I feel like it's overdone. I feel like people have had enough. Honestly, I feel like it's constant product pushing now, especially on Instagram. I should probably stop now before I say too much. Because I don't want to get my mouth in trouble. Next question, we'll move on from that. So yeah, to end that, I am open to sponsors. We just have to be on the same terms, and I just have to feel valued and appreciated. And when I don't, then I'm not going to work with the brand. So another one, do you get gnats with Fox Farm soil? I did when I tried the soil. It's frustrating that soil brands don't do better. I normally use Molly's Aeroid Chunky Soilless Potting Mix. I love it, but it's expensive, and right now my order is delayed. I see a few plant enthusiasts using it for their DIY soil mix. I thought I'd ask her experience with it. So I no longer use Fox Farm. I loved it for a while. I feel like I was probably one of the first ones to use it. I started using it in 2021. And I have a very old potting mix video using that on my channel. And I don't use it anymore because I moved away from peat moss and just bagged soils in general. When I did use Fox Farm, I didn't get gnats specifically with like opening a bag of soil and seeing gnats. Potentially gnats could have gotten in there if there's like a hole in the bag or something like that. And about the Molly's Aeroid Soilless Potting Mix, this kind of goes back to the affiliate thing. They actually did reach out to me a few weeks ago, and I politely said I wasn't interested. No offense to them. I just vowed to no longer try any kind of soil mix from another company again because of the bad experience I had with Souls. They did, one of the co-founders, I think it was Thomas, reached out to me. I'd have to find my email, but I mean, he was nice. It just, he went about asking me to try his product, the product wrong. He just started out in the email like, I want to gift you $100 Canadian in the potting mix. And there was 3 different mixes that he wanted to send me. And then the second part of that email stated, you would get 10% commission in any sales generated through your link. Some of our top creators are getting over $200 a month, and I don't see any reason why you could not do more, smiley face. That just turned me off, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I am not going to sell your product for you, I'm sorry. I just take offense to brands reaching out to me expecting me to sell their product for them. So I looked at their mix. It's like, what, $40 on Amazon. If I really wanted to try it, I'll just buy a bag myself. No expectations from that. And the thing is like, say I sell like $2,000. So I would have to sell $2,000 a month in their product for them to get $200 in commission. with the 10%. So that's like 50 bags of soil. So in order to sell 50 bags of soil, I feel like I would have to use and promote it a lot. And that's a lot of work. And to me, that's just not being very honest. I don't know. I just don't like working with affiliate brands or brands who offer affiliates, because if you think about it, like, you're making them all this money, right? Meanwhile, they're paying you a small percentage, but you're the one that's actually doing all the work promoting their product while they're reaping all the benefits. They just have to pay you a small commission. And again, you don't know how much commission you actually earn unless there's a way to track it. Who's doing their bookkeeping? Who's actually keeping up with that? And what if they just don't pay you? Meanwhile, you're trusting in your audience, and your following looks up to what you're using and what you're promoting. So I feel like if you are making commission from a product, I feel like you should be honest with that and let people know that you do get commission. I just didn't like the way that he asked me to try his product. I just replied like, hey, thanks for reaching out. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested. And then they just replied back right away, can we send you the product anyway? And then I said no, because I just don't want your free product. I'm just not interested in trying it, and that was that. So yeah, I mean, it may be a good bag soil. I don't know, like, for me to really test how a soil performs, you need to grow in it for 6+ months to really see how the plants do in it, I would say. And again, I am happy to support smaller brands. You guys know I support Thiccly all the time. Does Gray ask me to use his poles? No. I've bought his poles on Amazon. I like them. Do I get any sort of commission from, does he pay me anything? No. It's on my Amazon, so I get a small like Amazon commission if someone buys it through my Amazon link, but any commission that I do get off of it, I'm using to buy more poles, if that makes sense. So I'm actually losing money. So I'm not making anything. And I feel like because Gray doesn't offer commission, his poles aren't advertised like the Rousseau poles. No offense to the Rousseau poles, I haven't tried them, but that's why you see them promoted more, because creators are getting 15% commission. So that's all I have to say about that. Just know that products that you usually see promoted, I would say most of the time are generating commission, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if that's what you want to do, if you want to promote products to get commission on the side, if you want to advertise for the businesses and do all the work promoting them, then you do you. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to water this in. Oh. Look how cute this one is. This one is all done. We're only 2 questions in. That first question took a lot, but I feel like I wanted to answer that one first because I knew I would go on about it for a little bit. So I'm gonna grab my next little project and we'll continue on. We might go back and forth between soil and pond. I'm not really sure. But these are the next 2 little plants I want to do. I'm drinking an energy drink. And I just made a new batch of soil up. Well, I call it soil, but it's not soil. It's an aeroid mix. It is all new ingredients, and I'm excited for it. It's got a lot of rocks in it. Specifically, I wanted this for my moss poles, but I'm going to test it out on a couple plants and just see how it goes. I have a lot of pumice in here, and I put some lava rock for weight for moss poles. This is very heavy feeling compared to my other mix that is very light and fluffy. So I'm super excited. I'm going to see how it goes, and if it turns out well, I'll let you guys kind of know more about it. So yeah, and the plants that we're going to do are upsize. This variegated banana is a tissue culture. It is growing very quickly. It is outgrowing this little pot, so I'm going to upsize it. This is one of the tissue cultures, that I did recently. Now, some of the leaves are coming in curled like this, these big ones, which is kind of weird. I don't know why it's doing that. And I don't know, these original leaves down here are more flat, so I don't know why these are coming in curled. I don't know if it's like a tissue culture thing with this plant or not. It looks very weird right now. And then this is the same tissue culture. This is an Anthurium ace of spades. This is the new leaf here. It's wobbly. It's flopped over. It's literally hanging on by its tiny little stem in the soil. So I'm gonna upsize this one, and then I have 2 4-inch pots. We're just gonna kind of plop and fill up around. Next question, do you sell plants online? If so, where can I see them? And I had, when will you start selling your props? I'm super excited about them. Yeah, my shop is a slow progress. I may be looking at mid-March now. I'm really trying to get ahead on filming YouTube videos because I'm doing it all by myself, and honestly, so much of my time goes into YouTube with filming and editing because it is my full-time job. I can't just not post because then I'm not having any income, if that makes sense. I don't have another job that I can just go and do and not worry about YouTube. To manage and care for all these plants, it takes me like the entire weekend sometimes to care and water for my plants, at least one day out of the weekend. And then not to mention like responding to comments and like emails and communicating and creating other content, and then also having like a personal life. There's not much free time for me left. I'm up really late editing a lot, and so yeah, I'm working really hard to try and get like a few weeks ahead on videos so I can dedicate time to just getting the website done. So when it is ready, I will make an announcement on my page. You will know. I will probably do like weekly or bi-weekly restocks with whatever I have because I want it to be homegrown. I don't want to buy wholesale and resell. I want to grow plants myself and sell my own plants that I have grown. So I want it to be special in that sense. So whatever I have available, I will put up on there, and it'll be me shipping them out and packaging them up, and I just want to be hands-on with all of that. Yeah, I hope to get it done here sometime in March. It's just right now, getting ahead on YouTube videos is like my primary focus. I may just have to go down to like 2 videos a week for like the next few weeks until I can get it done. Because I feel like editing is what takes a lot of time for me. That's what that is looking like in there. Let's do the banana first. How do you eliminate thrips? Currently battling them. I am so sorry. You know, ever since I posted that plant mail video with the Pallidiflorum, several of you actually reached out to me and said that you found thrips in your collection and like thanked me for posting the video. Thrips are hard. Thrips, their life cycle, adults can live like 45 days. They fly. They can lay eggs in the soil, inside of the leaf tissue. So it's a long process to eliminate them. You can go the pesticide route if you choose. I would prefer to use beneficials and then just checking your collection pretty much every day and going around to your plants, eliminating any thrips that you see right away, getting them off, quarantining plants that are affected. It's a lot of hands-on work. They're not easy to get rid of, but you have to be persistent. You have to check your plants. Because I think someone said in my video that the larvae can take even a long time to hatch out. So if one week, say you don't see any, the next week you could possibly see larvae that hatch. And then if you don't notice them, then yeah, the life cycle can continue on for a while. So pesticides, you can use diatomaceous earth on the soil. Make sure to keep it dry. You can use systemics to make the plant toxic to them as they feed on the plant tissue. You can use spinosad spray on the leaves, stuff like that. I personally would beneficial route. Chai is bringing his toy on here. It's funny, he'll carry toys around in his mouth and start meowing like he's hunted down the toy, the bird or whatever it is that he thinks that he caught. Did you bring me your toy? He brought me his wiggly worm. Go get it. But for beneficials, I would recommend watering in nematodes. I feel like 100% saved my collection when I had them. And then for the leaves, you could do minute pirate bugs or cumarius mites. I definitely would recommend those. And you could try lacewing larvae as well. I personally would do a lot of manual checking and cutting off leaves that are badly affected. And just a lot of time. They're not going to go away overnight. I think I got rid of mine in about 2 months, and I drove myself crazy a lot of the days just checking over every leaf in my plant room in here, and it's a lot of work. It really is, but you can definitely get rid of them. If a plant really doesn't mean that much to you and it's just badly infested, then you can definitely get rid of plants and just cut off. They like new growth, so any new juicy leaves, I would cut a lot of new leaves off. Sometimes I would just take a cutting of a plant and just get rid of it. You can take a cutting, maybe propagate it in water, and then just chuck the soil that it's in, and the rest of the plant, you can start over with some. I didn't chop like all of my leaves away. I just was very diligent about every day coming in here and manually removing as much as I could. With of course, the mites and everything. I think by the end of it, I did end up taking Captain Jack's Dead Bug Spinosad, and just spraying my plants after the mites had their course, just as like one last step. I didn't really want to use the pesticide, but I feel like at 2 months in, I was like over it. So I did that as like one last final hurrah to make sure that they were gone, I guess. And they just slowly stopped appearing. I didn't see them anymore. My plants started growing back. The new growth wasn't affected. So eventually you just get rid of them. This is a very chunky. It's a little bit wobbly though. I feel like I need to get this down here a little bit more. I had to change my battery, so if it looks a little bit different. Next question. Ooh, I like this question. Do you ever try to push plants to their limits for max growth? How much light can it take before it's not good? How much fertilizer can it take? Can you optimize a plant's growth? I would say, I feel like if I were to push any plants to the limit, would be my poles. I would say specifically my Adansonii, because I would say it's my biggest, most mature plant I have currently in my collection. And I'm sure you probably could push the limits on fertilizer. Like you could test to see like how much it could take before you notice any kind of like burning or damage from it, and try to give it the best light possible and give it the best care. I don't really want to do that with my plants. I love big leaves. I'm not doing it because of any other reason other than the fact that I love growing them from small and seeing them get big. I just think the big leaves are just so beautiful to look at, and for me, I just want to grow plants to be happy. I don't want to do them a disservice and like underfeed them. I want to make sure that they are getting what they need. Now, granted, I have so many plants in my collection that it's impossible for me to give them all like the best light and all that. I just don't have enough good spots in my home for that. So the more light you give and the more nutrients and all that, the more that they'll grow for you and the better that they'll do. But I'm sure you probably could test the limit, especially if you were in like an ideal growing environment. You could probably get away with that. I would love to grow plants outside if I could. I feel like we get too cold of winters here. Not like cold, but we get like into the teens. So it's too cold to grow plants outside, but I would definitely love to live somewhere that I could do that. I think for me, it's just going to balance to see what like my happy place is going to be with fertilizer and everything. But again, like there's space issue too, and I don't want to like overdo it because I already am so crowded in this room. I don't want like huge plants in a short amount of time, you know. I had a question about flat mites. How did I get rid of my flat mites? And I still have flat mites. They pop up every once in a while on mostly my Marantas. And to me, like I'm gonna water those in a second. I'm gonna start this one. I don't really, I'm not really as paranoid about them. When I first learned about them, I was kind of freaking out. I thought this was like a terrible plant pest, and they are bad. Like they will do damage to like your plants and cause them to go dormant and not grow well. But in actuality, I just feel like it's just a life cycle thing with a lot of these plants specifically, or a lot of these pests specifically. And it's just constant treatment, weeks and weeks of treatment. I'm just spraying with water Castile soap when I get the time. If it's weekly, great. If it's not weekly, then it is what it is. If a plant, I kind of look at it too, if a plant isn't doing well, and I try to troubleshoot and narrow down things that it could be and things, what is the plant getting like care-wise? If it's getting everything it needs and it's healthy and it's not growing, then flat mites is a possibility, and then I can scope the plant. But I did find flat mites on one of my other Marantas recently, so yeah, I'm just spraying it weekly and kind of going from there. But I'm definitely not as paranoid as I was about them. It's just like, oh well. I feel like once you've had all the pests, you kind of get not immune to them. You don't get as fazed by them as much. You're kind of just like, you kind of roll your eyes and you're like, oh, here comes the treatment process again. But yeah, there was a period of time where I got super stressed out. I had a question about my Anthurium warocqueanum. They have one that is strictly in moss and perlite, and they stay on top of keeping it moist. And the edges always seem to get crispy. It stays in the cabinet, 70% humidity. And only notice that it gets crispy when new leaves come, and then the old one kind of wants to die. I don't know, sometimes I struggle with Anthuriums and crispy leaves, and maybe it could be something fungal too that is going on. I feel like for me, I am slowly working on moving a lot of my Anthurium over to pon. I know this one is in soil because it's a tissue culture, but I may eventually down the road like transfer it to pon, but I'm just gonna keep it in soil for now since it seems happy. Aeroid mix. But my Esmeralda, ever since I moved it to pon, it seems really happy. I just feel like that balance of the water and oxygen that it gets, I feel like some of those plants, like Anthurium warocqueanum, I feel like is just a sensitive plant too. And like browning and crisping can happen regardless, even if it's in like ideal conditions and getting the best care it can, like I still get browning and crispy leaves. If they bother me, then I will cut them off. But plants aren't perfect. Yellowing and browning is just a part of growing plants. Even plants out in nature aren't perfect. So don't think that you have to have perfect leaves. I would say if you're struggling in a substrate, if the plant doesn't seem to be happy, you could always try a new substrate out, and then maybe it'll like growing in it a bit better. And then if it is fungal, you could always treat with a copper fungicide or like Phison 20 I recently got, and just treat it and see if it gets better with like new growth over time. Someone asked, I think I answered this already, if I thought about growing a pothos outside. I am going to plant a pothos cutting, and I think a monstera cutting. I have a prop. I'm going to plant it outside this summer. We have a tree in our backyard, and I'm just going to see what it does this summer outside. And over winter, I would just cover it. I'm going to get some protection tarps or something for plants and just see how it goes. Maybe it'll just grow back. If the foliage dies back, maybe it'll still be like a plant growing, because the roots may still be okay. So if the foliage gets damaged by like frost and all that, then maybe it can still grow and come back. But if it's a cutting, if I plant a cutting out there, I won't like feel too bad. And I'll try to care for it the best I can over winter, but we'll see. But I know nothing can really survive out there like on its own unless it is something that can withstand like temperature in the teens. Next question. Hey girl, what is the process you go through when you are deciding on a plant you are having a challenge with growing and thriving in your environment? How do you know you've given it your best and you might be done? Hope you're enjoying your week, and I can't wait to see the results. Good questions in this chat. Thank you. It is a Monday today, so hopefully it's a good week. I feel like I'm going to be doing a lot of filming and editing this week, but I hope you have a good week yourself. How do I decide if a plant that I am growing, I'm having a challenge growing and thriving in your environment? So I would say I've kind of come to terms with, like, I'll try a plant a couple of times. Like, for example, my philodendron Melanochrysum, it's back here now. I've had this plant, not this plant specifically, I had one before this one and it didn't make it. It was a cutting that I got locally and it came to me with spider mites and stuff and it just didn't do well. And so I got this one as an import and I'm still like trying to grow it. But I feel like I give plants a few tries. And if I can't grow it after then it's like, okay, maybe this plant just isn't for me. You could always try changing substrates too, change up your care a bit. Do some like research maybe on, say if you see someone that does have a plant and they're growing it well, maybe see how they're growing theirs and the conditions and stuff that theirs are being kept in. So I kind of give plants like 3 tries, I feel like. After the 3rd try, if I can't really grow it, then it's just not worth it to me, because you want to be happy with plants. You want to keep plants that like your care and your environment. So if plants don't do well for you in your environment, then don't feel bad. Don't feel like it's something that you're not doing potentially, and that's okay. Like, I struggle with some plant species and that's totally okay. I don't beat myself up too much and stuff. So there's plenty of other plants. There's so many plants out there. And sometimes I'll fall in and out of love with certain plants in my collection, and that's okay too. So these look so cute. So that is the Ace of Spades there. And then the variegated banana. Now this one, the main soil here that the plant was in is a bit moist, so I'm not gonna water this one. This one I feel like was a little bit dry in here, so I'm gonna give this one just a little bit of water. Just a little bit. I'm gonna try and water over one of these little containers so I don't make too much of a mess. Okay, I hope they like their upsizes. I'm already like 3 plants in and I feel like I've only touched the surface on questions. I want to get through a lot of repots in this video, which is a good thing. I feel like that's a good thing. So I'm gonna grab probably my next couple of plants and we'll continue on. I grabbed another little project. This here is a Scindapsus jade satin variegated. That is a new leaf from that prop. That's the original bottom plant. I got this as an import over the summer, I think. And I cut it back here, the main plant. It's finally pushing a growth, but this growth has been so slow. I have another node down here that is extremely slow. And I don't know how many actual little cuttings I have in here. I have probably like 4 wet sticks maybe that are in here, but a couple of these strands that are a bit bigger that are growing. I want to go ahead and get out of this little stratum cup. It is extremely rooted. And I probably am just going to make a plant together and have it grow. And then any of the wet sticks I might just leave in here and let them continue growing. If they're rooted well enough, I might go ahead and just pot them up. Because I'd love to take cuttings of this maybe in the future, but I love my Scindapsus jade satin so much, my big plant, that I was so excited to have a variegated one. It's just very, very, very slow growing. And I know Scindapsus don't really like their roots messed with that much, so yeah, it's a little bit of a struggle. I feel like Scindapsus don't import that well. They just take a long time to kind of get happy again. And this is just a random clear pot that I had. I think this was I think this may have been from an orchid or something. I'm not really sure, but I'm just going to use this one. So next question, tips for preventing mold with stratum when propagating corms. Do you keep domes on at all times, heat mat, drainage holes and cups, fan for circulation? So I sometimes will get mold on my stratum, and it happens. Oh, it's a lot of soil. I'm probably going to mix some of mine. Yeah, it's a healthy root system, I feel like. Maybe this one here is a bit rotty. Again, this was an import, so, but it looks healthy for the most part. I don't want to waste this mix, so I might add some of my new one in there. This might have been Fox Farm peat moss. A lot of my plants are still in Fox Farm. The thing that I have learned with stratum is sometimes molding happens regardless of what I do. Increasing air circulation will help with molding. Sometimes I like to just water, say like this is stratum, I'll take my watering can and just water on one side and let it fill up from the bottom, and then I keep maybe from an inch from the top. That way the stratum on top isn't as wet as the rest of the stratum, but it's still wicking up. So if the top layer is dry, it's more likely to not mold. You could try that. I've done that recently and it's worked a lot better. So if you keep it in more ideal conditions, it will most likely do better. But again, I feel like with any substrate, just allowing it to not sit moist all the time will help with air circulation and just not keep it so much moisture in here. So you have a lot of little wet sticks that are just like popping their little leaves out. I have like 4 or 5 of those. So a lot of my containers like this are open. They're not in domes. The only ones that are in domes are the Alocasia corms, and I tend to keep domes on them because I want as much humidity to help them sprout more quickly. And then once they start sprouting and stuff, then I take the dome lid off. But usually cups that I'm just propagating in, I leave open. I don't cover them. Heat mats can like help a lot if you're looking to have them grow and sprout more quickly. That heat will definitely help them out. And I don't usually do drainage in my cups. I just continually just fill them up when they're low. I don't think there's one right way to do it over the other. I just prefer not to have drainage and just fill up the containers. There's a lot of roots on that one. See, that one has a nice growth coming in. So I want to pop this one up in here. Do you treat water, moss, perlite, and pond props for pests? If so, how? So for propagations, I just do mites on my plants. I've had mites go into like my moss props before, like little soil mites that will crawl up and down my thickly poles sometimes. But if they're in like water, you can't really treat the water necessarily. And nematodes, I water in, but I only water those in soil plants because water can drown them. So you don't want to water them in anything sitting in water. And then pond, same thing. I would just treat the leaves. Like plants in pond and any other substrate can still get pests. It's just a matter of like staying on top of your treatment, whichever method that you prefer to do. Love you and your videos. I would love to know how your monsteras are doing, especially the arias and albos. I just filmed a plant update too, so I don't know actually which one of these videos you guys are going to see first. If you see the update first, it will be right before this video and I will link that. But if the update is after this, stay tuned. I do show them. My arias and albos are doing wonderfully. They have come back amazingly from the rot and all of that. They're just doing so well. And I'm just very happy with the progress that they've made. Yeah, it makes me so happy because they're like my favorite plants. So they're doing very well. And I am going to be doing like a full houseplant tour very, very soon. Next month in March. And I'm going to go more in depth on every plant that I have. I have 4 little wet sticks. What I think I'll do with those is keep those maybe in the stratum. I just wanted to get the bigger props out so I could get them growing more. I am really bad sometimes with stratum. I really underwater my stratum, which is very sad. They go dry a lot. Oh, one person said I'd really like to see an update on the Anthurium clarinervium hybrid seedlings. And that was the first plant I just did. I forgot that question was here. So yeah, you did get a peek at them. The other ones in my cabinet still in moss, but it has 3 leaves, but it's a lot smaller. For some reason, it's the runt out of the 3. I don't know why, because they were all in the same conditions, getting the same care. It's just not growing as well. I mean, it's still growing well. It's just smaller. It's just taking a little bit longer to actually grow and size up. I'm just kind of mixing this in here with some of the fresh mix because I don't want to waste this. Do you still use Super Thrive? Not the new fertilizer, but the stuff you used when rehabbing plants to give them a bit of a boost. I still do, not as much lately. The last few times I probably would have, except that company, the Marful company, reached out to me. They sent me their soil enhancer to try, like no strings attached. They didn't ask me to make content around it. I just decided to use it. So I used it to water in my Adansonii when it was shocking. And then I recently used it on my Hoyas that I repotted in the guest bedroom, and all the Hoyas are doing amazing. I don't see any shock at all, any kind of stress, which is a good thing because I did kind of be a little rough with their root system. So I don't have that much experience with using it. I've only used it on like those plants, and I feel like it's helped both times I used it. So I'm going to continue to use it, even though I still really do love Super Thrive because I used it for so long. It's nice to try something else out, I guess, in place of it, you know? So I'll see how it goes. I definitely want to finish that bottle, and if I only see good and positive things from using it, then I will most likely repurchase that instead of Super Thrive. You do have to use a lot of the product though. That's, I guess, the only downfall, and it's a bit more expensive than Super Thrive. Super Thrive, you only use a small amount, and it only is good for 2 years. And then it kind of expires. So definitely keep that in mind. If your product is old, it may not be as effective. But yeah, so far I would say I'm having really good luck with the Marful stuff that I've used on the plants that I've used it on. Like if it stopped my Adansonii from shocking, I'm not saying it was the product alone, but I used it in combination of everything else that I was using or that I did. So I feel like that in itself helped, and yeah, I definitely want to use it. I think the issue that I'm having too is now that I'm using liquid fertilizer and I'm using the stress coat and silica, there's so much additives in my water now that I'm ever used to. I think for repots, I should honestly just use the soil enhancer to help rather than just fertilizing right away. So I probably should use the enhancer for some of these plants today. I really should. Yeah, we'll see how it goes here, but I definitely want to finish the bottle. Do you use the same fertilizer for all your plants? Have you noticed a difference in your plants since you've started using a liquid fertilizer? Right now, I'm currently using Foliage Pro. I used GT for the last 3 months. I'm still using Osmocote though, slow release, in some plants when I go to repot, just because I have a full bottle that's just sitting there, so I want to use it. Having some slow release in the soil in addition to using a liquid, I don't think that's going to be too much for your plants. I think depending on how much of it you're actually using, of course. And then the silica that I'm using now too. So it's a lot. There's been a lot of changes with my water regimen and nutrient regimen, especially since I branched out. I feel like pond was the reason for that, because there's a lot that I have to do with pond now, like the nutrient solution and making sure that they're getting what they need. I don't know, it's a lot to learn. It's a lot of different calculations and a lot of different like monitoring the progress of everything. It's gonna take me some time to get a hang of everything that I'm using, but the liquid fertilizer, I've definitely noticed bigger growth. Obviously, like plants on poles are going to size up if they're getting nutrients. I don't think it's specifically liquid fertilizer related, but since they are getting the nutrients in a liquid form that is more fast acting than a slow release pellet, they are getting those nutrients more quickly. So in turn, they will size up more quickly. I don't think there's this particular brand that's going to give you bigger growth versus another brand. I feel like as long as they are getting those essential nutrients and micronutrients, they're going to size up and be happy. I'm not promoting a particular fertilizer. This is really cute. I'm like pressing it down. Make sure I'm filling in a lot of the air pockets, because I use some bigger pieces of bark and stuff, and with the rocks, it's a little bit more chunky than what I'm used to. Look at my hands. This is so cute. I'm glad that I filled this one out. I probably will water this in a little bit. I'm gonna set this aside though. So these little wet sticks, They don't really have enough roots, so what I think I'm gonna do is just stick them back in the stratum. Next question. Oh, I like this question. What was the very first plant you propagated or saved that was really inspiring for you early in your plant journey? So I would definitely give this to Monstera deliciosa. My very first albo cutting was my first expensive plant that took me on a long journey. I learned so much about propagating with that plant. It was so stubborn to grow, and I got it as like an anniversary gift, and I dreamed of having an albo. It was very expensive at that time. It was in 2020, and I learned a lot about propagating with that because it was just a cutting and I didn't really have too much propagating experience, and I was super nervous because it was so expensive and my first like rare plant. I was very, very anxious. And once I was confident and I was able to propagate that, I'm like, okay, if I can prop and root and grow a Monstera albo cutting, then I can do so much more. And then it just kind of like took off from there. And I would say my first rehab experience that I really remember that was kind of like frustrating was my very first Monstera Thai constellation. So I don't really talk about this plant much, and I have a picture of it at the old house with Luna. So this Monstera Thai constellation cost me $400. I got this shortly after my albo because I really wanted a Thai. Because I loved Monstera. I worked an extra overtime shift at the hospital to pay for this plant. I went to a nursery in North Carolina, and I picked the plant. I saw the plant and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to take a chance on buying a cutting of this plant. I had heard they were more prone to like rot, and I'm like, you know, I just want to take a chance. I don't want to take that chance. I just want to buy a happy plant. Like, I deserve this. I worked extra for this. It's what I want. I'm going to buy a happy plant. So when I got to the nursery and checked out, the guy checking me out told me specifically, like, don't mess with the soil, just leave it in there. And that was pretty much it. So I'm like, okay. I was kind of like naive a little bit, but I had a gut intuition a couple days after I bought it that something wasn't right. I dumped the entire plant out and noticed the entire root system was completely rotted, almost the entire root system. I felt like they knew that they were selling bad ties and they were selling rotted plants. I had sort of joined Facebook groups in that time, but I didn't really know, I wasn't really that active in them yet, but from what I was reading, the shop apparently had some bad reviews about doing shady things. So I was like, great, I was sold a rotted tie. I didn't bother like calling them back or anything like that. I just took it upon myself to try and rehab it because I'm not like confrontational at all. I just kind of was like, you know what? I'm just gonna, it sucks. It is what it is. I'm just gonna rehab it and do my best with it. I was very sad. So I had to rehab this plant. I had it somewhat rooting back in perlite. I had tried perlite. Or my mistake was I tried to propagate it again. And that caused the plant to rot and shock, and the entire node rotted on me, both pieces. I wish I didn't propagate it because it was somewhat growing back, but I decided to propagate it. I don't know what I was thinking. It didn't make it, unfortunately. It was probably the worst plant loss that I've experienced to this date because it was so expensive. I don't think I've lost like a more expensive plant than that first original Thai. So whether you're buying a plant online, at a nursery or anywhere, it just goes to show you that it doesn't really matter because some people don't have good business practices and sell crappy plants no matter where you're buying from. So just be cautious. Make sure that when you are buying plants that you can check the plant over really well, see the root system, see the nodes, just make sure you know what you're buying before you buy it. And if they're not being honest and not giving you photos of what you want and they're not showing you the root system and they're telling you something else, then I would steer clear because that was a learning experience for me. So I have 4 little wet sticks in the stratum. I gotta fill a little bit more stratum in here. And I'll let these root and grow a bit more, and then once I have little ones growing, I can do whatever with those. But this will be my plant that I'm going to let grow out. So I may eventually get rid of those if these ones do well. I think there's maybe like 6, 7, 8 questions in the general category, and then I'll move on to poles and pond, and then the personal questions after that. So I'm gonna wash my hands and clean up this mess, and I'm gonna grab a few more plants to pot up. And then, yeah, we'll continue on because I feel like we're probably at least at the 30, 40 minute mark. So this is probably gonna be like an 1.5 hour video. My next little planty project. So I have 2 Ficus shriverianas here, and I wanted to pot them up together this spring, but I'm gonna go ahead and pot them up. So I want you to look at the difference. Can you see the difference? Guess which one gets more light? This one. This one has been dormant all winter. I got this one very late summer and at the grocery store, this one on my right, and it hasn't grown since I brought it back inside. It gets way less light. The leaves are more green, hasn't grown. This one sits in my south window here in my plant room, and it's grown a lot. This one I got as a plug from the Green Escape, and it was so tiny when I got it. I have the unboxing video on my channel. The thing is like it's outgrown this tiny pot, and I left the plug, I think, on this one. So I was gonna try and remove that and get these potted up together so that I can have this ficus growing beautifully for me, because I think this is a beautiful ficus. This one is still in the nursery mix, and it has outgrown this pot as well. And I'm gonna try and remove all this old dirt off, and then I'm gonna clean the leaves and get this plant nice and pretty and growing. I think I'm just gonna use a clear pot for now. I think it'll fit in here fine for right now. I'm just gonna use this soil in the mix from my other repot that I had, and then add some fresh. I'm gonna mess with this one first. I need to clean the leaves on both of these plants though. Yeah, I don't think any of them have spider mites. Ficus plants are attracted, or spider mites are attracted to ficus too. But I'll clean their leaves and stuff and everything. So let's move on. I had a couple people ask me about outdoor gardening. Love your channel. Super excited to see more content from you. What are you planning for outside gardening this year? And I initially thought I was going to get into some outdoor gardening this year, but in all honesty, I just don't think I have the time right now, because I don't know anything about outdoor gardening. And I would rather, I think, focus this summer on my shop and getting all that running and everything, since it's like a new thing for me and a lot of time. I'll need a lot of time that goes into that, and I won't really have much extra time to focus on learning gardening or anything. So I may not even get into it next year, but we'll see kind of how it goes this year with the shop. I feel like it's gonna take a lot of my time. And the other thing that I didn't realize is, so here in Savannah, we have a lot of wildlife out here. The deer that come through our yard, they come through every night, every morning. We have, we have deer poo all in our yard. Out there, we have a lot of geese, we have raccoons. So anything that I do out there is going to have to be protected from the wildlife. And I just don't think I just have it in me to try and do it this year, but I do want to try and grow some crops and stuff some year. It's just when I was thinking about it, I wasn't thinking about the animals. We have cameras that are set up and outside, and so the motion goes off, and then when I see a motion alert, you can actually see the deer come through. So yeah, that's gonna be an issue with a garden for sure, but I do want to one year. I just don't know when that's gonna be. Your plant room seems so bright. What's your foot candles at? So when it's sunny, like the sun is coming through right now, I know you guys can't really see that. Shucks, I'm gonna have to change my battery again. I'm just peeling off this little plug that came with this plant. I'm not trying to disturb it too much. I don't want to shock it that much. So on a sunny day like here, when the sun is coming in through the window, as the sun is moving across the room, so it starts out in the morning, like in front of me, some of these plants get a little bit of light, and then as it moves throughout the day, the most light that comes in is right directly within like a foot back from the window. So all of my monsteras get the most light. And then in the evenings, they shine, a little bit of sun will shine on my poles, but not for very long, maybe not even an hour. But the foot candles really depends on the area of the room, I guess. I mean, I have lots of areas in here that are just low light. I have areas closer to the grow lights that get a lot more foot candles. So it's really variant on the location in here, because I do have like this corner over here that's pretty dark. I keep my grow lights on for roughly like 10, 12 hours. Not everything in here gets super bright light. It is very bright just because it is the south window. So during the day it gets very bright, but on cloudy days it's very, very, very dark in this house. And the grow lights are the only thing that's keeping it bright in this room. But yeah, I don't really measure foot candles a whole lot. I honestly, I know light is super important and I just can't give the best light to all my plants. So I don't really measure light unless I'm trying to figure out if something is growing wrong with the plant, like how much light is it getting and should I be giving it more, you know? Have you given up collecting rainwater? Do you use or suggest systemic granules? I think that was all in one question. It was coming off the gutter of the house into a barrel it was draining, and I just think it just got contaminated over time. It's very humid some days, and with the rainy season, something was probably just growing, some kind of fungal issue in the barrel, and I just don't want to take that chance. I don't want to use dirty rainwater on my plants anymore. Yeah, I'm just filtering my tap water now. I might look into reverse osmosis or something, but I feel like right now the tap water, filtering it and then adding my stress coat and stuff is fine. I feel like I'm just going to continue with that. I don't use systemic anymore. I did use systemic granules back in the day. What was that? The lights just flashed and I don't know why. That was very strange. You guys saw that, right? It's like, what is going on? That was weird. Personally, I don't suggest systemic anymore. If you don't follow Copper Lattice on Instagram, I found her not too long ago. She posted something recently that talked about the use of systemic and pesticides with plants, and overall it could be harming your plants in the long run. And then you guys know with like imochloropride, that ingredient, there's been studies done that shows that can make spider mites and exacerbate a problem and make them grow more rapidly and reproduce. I just don't like spider mites. Spider mites you're always gonna have in your collection. It's just bound, they're just bound to show up. Pests, no matter how thorough you are, pests are just bound to show up because they just do. They will show up even if you're doing everything right. Even if you're using systemics, like when I was using them, I still had pests. They still showed up, and then I had like spider mites like crazy. So because of my experience with spider mites and everything, I just would rather not use systemics. Flushing and rinsing your plants off of water is the best way to get rid of pests. And then using predatory mites, of course, and beneficial insects, I feel like it's just the way to go. And for me anyway. This one has a little plug too that I'm gonna remove. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, to each their own. If people like using systemics, you know, that's just whatever they wanna do. I just prefer not to nowadays. How do you cope with losing a plant that you fought really hard to save? I love your videos and they've been a huge help to get through this horrible, dreary winter. I feel for all of you who have like really long winter seasons and all the snow. Like I don't know. I mean, I grew up north in Ohio, so we got a lot more snow and stuff here, but just like the nonstop winter weather is just, yeah, I'm sorry that you have to go through that. I was really, and I'm still upset. I was talking earlier about that Thai constellation. It's just something that really like broke me because I tried to save it for 6 months and I did rehab it. Like it was coming back and then I made the mistake of trying to propagate it. And it sucks, like losing plants suck, it really does. Just know that with each loss that you get, it's just, you learn something from it, right? And then you can't control how a plant is going to respond. Again, you can do everything right and follow everything by the book, everything that you're supposed to do, and then a plant can still die and not make it. So I try not to be too hard on myself. I have to know, like, they are just plants. Even though I get super attached to my plants, like I really, really do, I just have to know like it's just a plant. It's okay. I kind of see a loss now as like a learning experience. Like, okay, what happened? What did I do wrong? What have I learned from this? What could I have maybe done differently? I just kind of take it case by case. And then if you're still thinking about a plant that you really just fought hard to save, just buy a new one. Just get it again. And it's not that it's going to replace a particular plant. It'll just, you still have a plant that that you really wanted, you know? So I don't know, I try not to be too hard on myself. I know it really stinks. It's what makes you the plant parent you are. Without those fails, you don't become the person you are without them, if that makes sense. What sparked your love of plants, and how long ago did you start your collection? I got into plants late 2019, early 2020. It was like my outlet in nursing. I got into plants like pre-pandemic, and it just was a hobby of mine that kind of saved me from my stressful days working at the hospital. And I just really had I don't know, I just fell in love with plants and the hobby, and then it turned into me posting plants on Instagram, and I grew a following, and then I started a YouTube channel, and this is where I am today. So I'm forever grateful to have found plants. It's crazy to think that the happiness that plants bring, you know, I don't know, they just make me so happy, and to be able to grow and care for them is so nice in a way, you know, I don't know. I'm just so happy I found them. What is your favorite species and least favorite genus? So I would say my favorite is obviously Monstera. I love Monstera deliciosa. I love the regular green. I love the deliciosa variegata. I love like Albo, Aria, Mint. I love all of them. I think they're just the plants that really made me fall in love with plants. And of course I love some velvety phyllos. I love like Maranta, and there's so many plants I love. I would say probably my least favorite genus would probably be, I don't have that many ficus plants. They're not my favorite genus because they're like a literal tree. And then I would say probably peperomia, I'm not really that good with. I don't necessarily think a certain genus, it's probably just like certain plants. Maybe within certain plant genuses. Try not to mess with this too much. So this has like a big bulky stem here. So that's the one that had gone dormant. And then this is the root ball on this one. This one is very dried because it dries out in my south window, but it doesn't seem to mind being underwatered. It really doesn't. So yeah, we have two that we're going to pot up into one. I think that's gonna look so cute together. I'm probably gonna put this in my window, both, so this will get really good light, but I'm gonna clean these leaves after I pop them up, just in case. I had mites on this one in my dining room though. So this is old dirt from the nursery. I'm not gonna use that, and I'm gonna use a little bit of this leftover dirt from the other plant with some new mix. Is it crucial to always check, adjust pH levels in the water that you use for plants? Thank you, you are the best. Thank you. I would say yes, it is important to check your pH. It's something that I never thought about when I first got into plants. And I don't think it's something that you necessarily have to really learn about at first, because I really didn't become pH obsessed until I got into pond, which was in the summer of last year, like June. That's when I started to like test my water and be more aware of my water and how that, like the fungal issues that happened with rainwater too, that kind of like led me down that rabbit hole of trying pond out for my alocasia, because they mostly affected my alocasia. And so when I went down that rabbit hole is kind of when I looked more into like my water conditions and everything else. I would say if you're just new with plants, it's not really that necessary. And I would say most soils have nutrients, and as long as you're fertilizing, you know, the plant should be getting the nutrients they need. You begin to see nutrient lockout when your pH is way too acidic or way too alkaline. You know, when it reaches those levels and it becomes an issue, maybe the plant is absorbing nutrients too fast, maybe you're just underfeeding it. It can become an issue, which I feel like some people can attribute that to like their plants yellowing. It may be because they're not feeding, overwatering, underwatering. lack of light. But in all honesty, I think the most important thing is like how your plant's getting those nutrients. And obviously it needs light to photosynthesize and to grow. Like I know that's super important, but it's also really important to make sure that your plant is getting the nutrients. And the only way to know that is to like monitor your water, like what you're physically giving your plant. So I think it is important to know, like you can check your tap water, you can buy like a test kit, what kind of additives are in your water that could potentially throw off your nutrient solution. You can check the pH of it. I feel like for me, ever since I started paying more attention to my water and stuff, I feel like my plants overall have done better. I guess for me, ruling something out, if I know what I'm giving my plants, like if I know the pH is okay, I know the nutrients and how much I'm giving them, and I know roughly what I'm doing, it more or less helps me troubleshoot like what else is going wrong with the plant. If it's not like a nutrient issue, is it a light issue? Is it a watering inconsistency? Is it a substrate issue? So it's one of those factors to me that I can check and kind of figure out more, like diagnosing more what is going on with the plant, if that makes sense. So although I think it is important to learn and something that you should probably be monitoring in some time, I don't think you have to like go crazy and try to like stress about it. I feel like kind of go off of what your plant is showing you. If the plant is growing and it seems happy, then just continue doing what you're doing. If you have a plant that isn't happy and isn't growing that well, then you can start to think about all those other factors that go into plant health and everything and kind of troubleshoot and go from there. So I think it is important, especially if you're going in like hydroponics, then you definitely need to know that. Time management. Do you have a schedule for your plants? Do you just dedicate one day a week, an hour each day? How do you manage your collection and life outside of plants? Plant care consumes a lot of my time with like YouTube videos and stuff. I will say that. I dedicate usually the weekend, either Saturday, Sunday. I split it up actually because sometimes doing plant care, I can't get it all done in one day. I'm someone who takes a long time with plant care. It really does. Some weeks I am more slack than others. Sometimes I just quickly water because I just don't feel like it. It's a lot of plants. The more you have, the more work that goes into caring for your collection. I love caring for them, but sometimes I do get overwhelmed certain weeks. So if I dedicate a majority of my time on like one day and I can just split it up, maybe a few hours here and there is what I usually end up doing on the weekend. Like I'll water for a little bit and then maybe go do something. Maybe I'll edit for like an hour block or 2 hour block and then maybe get up and do some watering. If I split it up, it's not so daunting. I don't really find that I'm doing too much care off camera now. Sometimes I still do, but a lot of the times I'm doing stuff on camera just so that you can see it and kind of see what I'm doing with my plants. And then one day during the week, like Wednesday or Thursday, is when I have to water my moss poles again. I have to water stratum cups, and I kind of go through my collection and see what's going on with them. Plants that I didn't water over the weekend, say like they weren't ready for water, I'll kind of check midweek and water. But sometimes I don't water them till the following weekend, so sometimes it's more like 2 weeks. Which some plants can tolerate depending on like where they're at in my collection. See, I would say plant care usually takes up 2 days of the week for like hours of that day, and then the rest of the week I'm not really doing that much plant care unless I'm filming. I'm usually filming 2 or 3 days out of the week, and then the other 2 or 3 days I'm editing, and then usually Sunday is like my day to kind of reset, to clean the house, to finish watering, and sometimes I edit, sometimes I don't. I'm usually working every day in blocks of time. Do you prefer to grow your plants in a cabinet or in your plant room? So my cabinet is in my plant room, and my cabinet conditions aren't too far off from my room environment. Like right now, humidity is 58% in here, and in my cabinet, it's 75%. So it is more humid, it's more stable in there. So I like to treat my cabinet for like propagations. They tend to grow better because they're under more light as well, being in there, and it's a lot more stable, less fluctuations, which can help propagations and stuff. The cabinet is small, and plants tend to outgrow it pretty quickly, so I'm always switching plants out of there. But the good thing for me is I don't have to acclimate them out of my cabinet. I can just take them out and they'll do fine because there's not too much of a difference that they'll actually shock after, if that makes sense. I do love the cabinet, and I think aesthetically, I love the look of it, and I love having plants in there to start them in there to rehab, and then I can move them out and grow them. They just outgrow it very quickly. What are 3 things you wish you knew back when you started your plant journey? Love repot and chat videos. I love repot and chat videos too. I love chatting with you. 3 things that I wish I knew before starting my plant journey. If we're taking like the business creator side out of it and just focusing on plant care, I would say it's okay to make mistakes and kill a plant. When I first started out, I would get so sad if a plant wasn't doing well and didn't make it. I used to be an overwaterer, and I would stress out about it and get really hard on myself, but just know that it's okay to make mistakes. It's how you learn and grow. So that's one thing I would say. And then another thing is, like, I was someone who didn't think I got pests that often, but really I had spider mites and stuff. And I would say still to this day, pests are just a nuisance and annoying. But just know that it's very common. Everybody gets pests. Just because you get pests doesn't mean like you're a failure, you're doing something wrong. It's just the nature of growing plants. You're gonna have pests at some point in your collection, and that is okay. I know it's hard to like not stress about that because it makes for a lot of extra work. You just have to do the best you can and know that it's just gonna happen. Yeah, just try not to be too hard on myself. And then the third thing is, I would say, just take your time with your collection. A lot of my plants I kind of got quickly because I just was obsessed with plants, and I always wanted like the next best thing, or I always wanted like a new plant that I didn't have, you know? I just collected so many plants so quickly that I overwhelmed myself. And it's a lot to care for. There's a lot of plants in my collection now that I could definitely not have in my collection, and I would be okay with that. I do want to chop plants back and maybe restart some with like a cutting because they've overgrown so much. Even though I still love the plant, it's just at a point where it's just overgrown and it needs to be trimmed, and I can share it with others. I would definitely not have bought some plants just because, yeah, like I said, it's a plant I didn't have, and in the moment it just made me feel good to get a new plant, and it was therapeutic for me. So there's no rush on collecting plants. It's not going anywhere. If you want it later, then you can always buy it at a later time. You don't have to rush and get like the new plant right away. I kind of want to move on to the moss pole section here. There wasn't too many questions about poles, and then we'll kind of get another plant to do for pond, and then probably one more plant to do for like the personal questions, and then we'll get to finishing up here. So for moss poles, I will link all of my pole videos. It's hard to answer some questions about poles sometimes because there's a lot that goes into growing plants on a moss pole. I think if anything, you just need a lot of patience and time. Just know that it takes a while for your plants to size up. You just have to be patient with some of them. It's not gonna happen overnight. And I am very fortunate to have like really good growing conditions in this plant room, which honestly helps. The humidity helps the aerial roots anchor into the moss. It is a lot of work to keep them watered, so just know that. You really do have to try and stay on top of that, which if you're someone who doesn't like to do plant care too often, it's a lot to maintain and keep up with because they tend to outgrow the pole kind of quickly once they get growing. And look how dirty that is. So that was like one of the questions, is how I keep on top of watering. And I get this question every time I show a plant on a moss pole. I get asked this question about watering. I water them twice a week. I water them either Saturday or Sunday, and then I water them again Wednesday, Thursday. I just go around and refill the globes that are on top of my poles and water them. Sometimes I feel like I'm always watering my poles because sometimes I don't finish them that day, or I need to top them off the next day a little bit more. So then again, I feel like I'm watering my poles every other day or something. So it's a lot, but twice a week is all that I really can manage. It's going back to doing plant care every day. I really don't want to do plant care every day. So the twice a week when I'm watering the rest of my plants, I just keep filling up the globes while I'm doing other watering, and it kind of knocks out the poles at the same time, if that makes sense. But mine go dry all the time. It's best to not really let them go too dry. Like the moss can dry out. It's fine. They usually do okay. But if you let them sit underwater for too long, then they're really going to lose that water. Their leaves are going to droop, they're going to stress. And then when you underwater them, they're going to yellow and just, yeah, it's really important to keep them hydrated. How did I first learn and get into moss poles? Does your husband like the plants? Does he think you're crazy when you buy all these plants? Now, my husband doesn't mind the plants. I would say, so before we moved, before I had like this plant room, he didn't really care that they were all over the house. Like I had them all over the living room. I would water in the kitchen. So there would be plants on the table and in the kitchen sink. So I think that was more of like an annoying thing for him because, I mean, he doesn't dislike plants. He's just not a plant person. So he doesn't really get the obsession, I would say. He's happier that I don't have them all over the house. Like our entire living area doesn't have any plants minus the window. And in our bedroom, there's a few like in the window area. But they're not all over the house. So I'm kind of respecting that for him because I know he doesn't want plants all up on him. So now that I have like a room for plants, it's better, but they are outgrowing the space very quickly. There is just no room left in here. So that's another reason why I want to propagate and maybe start some plants over, because I now have to be selective on the plants that I grow to maturity because, yeah, there's no room for them. I would love to have, don't get me wrong, I would love to have plants all over the house and set up in other areas, but I also have to think about, I have 3 cats and I have a lot of toxic plants, so I really can't have them all over the house because I would be worried they would get into them, although they're pretty good most of the time. Chai is the only one that would want to nibble on everyone. Yeah, just have to be selective on, on the plants now. And then what was the other part of that? Oh, how did I get into moss poles? Learn about. So I was looking for a way to support my plants on, like other than a stake. I had come across a YouTube video, because this is when I was getting into YouTube and stuff. And it was like by Planterior Decorator and how to make like an aesthetically pleasing moss pole. And it was using the plastic mesh. And then when I started my Instagram that year as well, I came across Paws Plant Life on Instagram, and she grew plants on sphagnum moss pole. And then I think their inspiration was Craig Milron, and he was like the first person that I knew that grew plants on sphagnum moss poles. I don't think he posts very much anymore now though. I don't think Paws posts really that much either. I'd never really see her post. But they were like my inspiration, her plants, and why I kind of started growing more plants on poles. And then I just became obsessed with growing like big leaves. It's just amazing, like the maturity of the plants compared to when they're small. It's just, I don't know, it's just crazy to me. But I first put a plant on a pole in early 2021. So yeah, it's been like 3 years. Let me water this in a little bit. How long does it take for plants to start growing on the moss pole? Is there anything that could prevent it from climbing? When you first put a plant on a pole, especially if it's cuttings, it needs time to grow in new roots. It's going to focus on this down here in the pot before it starts to focus on pushing leaves and new growth. So once this is kind of stable and happy down here, then it will focus on growing up here. But just making sure that you're getting those nodes super close to the moss so that they can grow into it. Giving light, if all those factors are kind of met, it just takes time and they'll start growing. Yeah, it's a lot of patience for poles. I love you and your content. I've been binge watching all of your videos. So glad I found your channel. Thank you so much. I'm happy to have you here. How do you decide between which plant will go on a wire pole and which plant will go on a thickly? Thanks for all that you do. I just kind of decide like in the moment, I guess. I'm more opted to grab thickly poles because they're more convenient and they're easier. The large poles are pretty steady. I have Monstera esqueleto. I had it on 4 layers of the large thickly, which is about 6 feet, the same as the wire pole. And Monstera esqueleto is a pretty big plant. It has huge leaves and it was pretty stable. So I feel like a large thickly is the ideal pole to grow plants to maturity on versus like the medium and the small size. It's just more convenient. Wire poles are just a lot of work to cut through, and then I don't know, it's more of a nuisance. So I'm glad though, I'm glad I took the time to start these plants on wire, the ones that are on it, because they are stable for the most part. Wire poles are the most stable. So if you can get over the initial hassle of making poles, wire poles, then it's worth it. Like, I'm really glad. I don't plan on really starting any new poles though, or at least not too many more. I'm probably going to take a couple off that I have on poles. But sometimes Thiccly poles now, like, you don't necessarily have to add moss in there. It could be just for support even. Like, I put a Monstera albo into pon that I have a clear Thiccly on, then it's just for support, not keeping the pole moist or anything like that. So I would say just look at the plant and how mature it is when you are deciding what you want to do for your own collection. Like for pothos, for like Marble Queen, for example, like the vine gets really, really thick and top heavy. I would probably do that one on wire or a large Thiccly. What is your goal? If you want to grow to maturity, then wire is probably going to be the most stable and the least hassle in the long run. It's just, yeah, if you don't mind making wire poles and taking the time to do that, I would probably opt for wire. It's just, the clear is more convenient. I love just grabbing one out of my closet, folding it, throwing moss in there, and it's done. I don't have to cut wire and scratch my hands all up and zip tie it. It uses a lot more moss. It's just more of a hassle, I guess. She is so cute. Look at her. I love this so much now. Beautiful. So we are going to start with pon next. We are back and we're going to do the pon questions while I pot this one up into pon. This is the Alocasia bisma or platinum that I got from the Green Escape. I don't have any corms or anything because this one was the only plant in the soil. I took it out of the soil when I got it and put it into water. It's grown a lot of water roots. I don't know if you can tell. For the most part, I feel like some of this is rotted, like the old soil roots, but it's grown a ton of new roots in. So I'm just going to clean this up a bit and yeah, put her into pon. It hasn't lost, I don't think, any leaves. Well, this leaf here is off, but all these leaves have stayed on. Like, it's done very well transitioning to water. Yeah, so just going to peel these rotted roots away. So pon questions. I don't want to touch on pon too much just because, like I said, I am going to make a care video. I had a couple about like watering. I am rinsing my pon now too. I think I mentioned that earlier. I'm rinsing the dust through now because I don't like how dirty it leaves my reservoir. So I am pre-rinsing it now. Watering can be dependent on your setup. I choose to use self-watering planters with a inner cache pot is what I like to do. You can buy the ones that have the water gauge. You can buy ones that have the wick. You could do a setup that doesn't have drainage. I think just whatever you prefer and what kind of works for you. This self-watering method has worked for me. And the thing with planting in pon is, so you need to water the pon through on top like you were watering any plant in any substrate, like soil, whatever. You need to water through the plant to like water it like you would water soil, basically. Like once a week, you're watering it through. You need to let that plant kind of adjust, especially if it's going from one substrate to another. I like to prep my plants now, going to pon and either water first or stratum to pon, and I've done moss to pon and they do well. I personally don't really like going from soil to pon, but that's just me. I'm not saying that you can't. I had one Alocasia shock going from soil to pon, so I'd rather just move to water first temporarily. And obviously the more like you mess with the roots, the more stress the plant will get. I like to water through and leave just a tiny bit of water in the reservoir, not a lot, and then I'll water through. When it kind of soaks up more, I kind of water through again through the top. And then I do that for several weeks and then I'll start leaving more water in the reservoir, if that makes sense, as the plant's kind of acclimating. But I feel like everyone kind of does it differently. I like to start mine. Someone asked about like self-watering pots, and I've never used self-watering pots before using pond, and there's different self-watering pots like I was saying with the meter, with wicks. I like to use the ones with the meter just to gauge how much water is actually in here, but you don't have to. And then I like to start with the 5-inch pot size, but again, you don't have to. Someone asked that they imported a Monstera albo. It's in perlite, acclimating. In your experience, how long should the albo stay in perlite before transferring to its permanent substrate? Would you recommend pond for it? And then since you have more experience with pond, do you still like perlite for imports, or do you think pond would be better for import rehab? So I have an albo in pond and it's growing amazing. It's up in my window right now. It loves pond. It was kind of like my test Monstera with pond, and it loves it. I definitely say go for pond if you want for Monstera. I think they would love it. Importing wise, I'm still going to use perlite because perlite is cheaper than pond, and a lot of those roots kind of rot off. So I would rather like rehab them first in a different substrate, even just water, if that's what you choose to do, and then move to pond maybe in some time. I feel like imports take a while to acclimate to your environment, especially how long they've been in the mail and stuff, and how sad they were when they came to you, if that makes sense. So I personally would rather not rehab them straight into pond. I think I'm still going to use perlite and Super Thrive and then let them rehab for a good like month, 6 weeks, and then put them in their substrate. But again, I feel like to each their own. I feel like everyone has their own way of doing things. I feel like the perlite with the imports have been working well, so I think that's what I'll continue to do. But yes, I definitely recommend pond for Monstera. I'm just putting a little layer in and then kind of spreading the roots around on top. Do I have any calatheas in pond? If so, did you put them in water after soil before going to pond? So I have, the only Maranta plant that I have in pond is a Maranta lemon lime. I don't technically have a calathea in pond, but I would do a calathea in pond. I would transition them to water probably for a period of time, usually a few weeks, and then transfer them to pond. Sometimes I get lazy with props. Like this one has been in water since the unboxing, which is going on probably a couple weeks now, and it grew in a ton of roots. You can kind of look at the root system and just see how it's doing. If you feel like you want more roots, the more roots you have, I feel like the better it will transition, if that makes sense. But again, the more you like handle and mess with the roots, the more shock they could go through. Another question, how do I use pond? Do you let them dry out for a period of time before you water again? Do you transfer straight from soil to pond? Or do you put in water and let it get water roots first? Do you rinse the plant and pond every time you water? So I kind of talked about some of this already. Now, I don't really do the dry out period phase. I kind of, like I was saying, I water through a few times when I wasn't rinsing to kind of get rid of that dirt. But now that I'm rinsing first, I'm just going to water through kind of whatever drips into the chamber to bring this up to a little bit on the low side. I don't want to overdo it with the water. And then probably in a week, once it kind of like sucks up the rest of that water, I'll water over top again and do the same thing. And then after it's been in here for a few weeks, I'll leave more water in the reservoir, like closer to the max line. So it kind of depends. I kind of look at the plant too now and kind of the root system and how I think it'll handle the transition. And I don't go to soil to pond anymore. I'll do water or strata most likely, and sometimes moss. And I'd only rinse through maybe every 3 or 4 weeks. So every week I am now, since I have the hydroponic meter now, every week I'm going to go through and just check some of my pond reservoirs, the pH and the EC and everything, and make sure that there's enough nutrients in there that the plant can absorb so that I'm not underfeeding them. And then I will water through, and sometimes I dump any excess water out and then just refill it and plop the plant back in. I'm not necessarily rinsing through every time. I would say I give a good rinse through probably every 3 to 4 weeks just to flush out excess salts, minerals, anything like that from my water that I'm using. That's just kind of what I prefer to do. I know some people don't flush their ponds, so again, I think it's probably just personal preference. Now that I've been growing in pond for 7 months now, I have noticed some nutrient deficiencies with a couple plants, which I think was me just not having enough nutrients available in here. And I think I was waiting too long. I think I was underfeeding. So now I'm going to start fertilizing right away, even though this is fresh pond and it has slow release. I'm going to start fertilizing, but probably at a slightly lower amount of the Foliage Pro. But see, I already have water here and I added the full strength, so I'm just going to use this to water through. I think it'll be fine. But again, it's just kind of one of those things where I'm just going to test my nutrient water and just see what the readings are and then just go from there. I feel like the more that I grow in pond, every time I feel like I'm learning more and more. Because when I first started using pond, I tried to watch videos and look at how other people were doing it, but I felt like I just got really confused. And I'm one of these type of plant people that just kind of goes for things. I like to experiment on my own. I don't really like to see too much how other people are doing things. I just like to see what I like and what kind of works for me and how my plants respond. And then I kind of learn based off of any issues that arise. I kind of learn and then research and go from there. How do you know when to transfer out of stratum to either pond or soil? Oh, I guess this is more a stratum question. I've had several in stratum for 4 months that I feel may be stalled. I kind of go off the root system. Like smaller plants, I feel like you can put them in pond, just use a smaller reservoir to not overwhelm them. Just like if you were potting into soil, just use a smaller pot at first. If they're stalled, they may just be a little bit dormant. It could be a lighting issue too, like if they're not getting enough light or the environment. I have several plants that don't grow well over winter. Even in here, my growth is a lot more slowed just because overall I feel like there is less light in winter in here. The sun isn't out as much. So even with the grow lights, not all my plants in here can get the best light, so they tend to slow down a bit. But if you have a good enough root system, if you feel like it's good enough to pot up, then I would go ahead and pot it up. Stratum to me is just a temporary substrate, so I don't like to grow in it long term. It's really hard sometimes for me to keep up with watering in stratum. I tend to underwater my cups a lot. It gets really compacted over time and gets kind of hard, and then when you go to water it, it just turns into like mush, and I don't know. It's not good to grow in long term. Trying to see if there was another pond question. I think that was pretty much it for pond. I just feel like I'm still kind of learning. I'm just now starting to fertilize some of them, and I just got my meter out to test the water and everything. So I feel like it's just gonna take me a while to figure out like my nutrients with it. I think I was telling my Instagram the other day, I had went around and counted. This will now be 33. No, I did my Anthurium. So I now have 34 plants in pond, and I'll probably get up to 50 because I have several philodendron and some more Alocasia, Anthurium, and I think I want to do a couple Hoya in pond. So I'll probably max out around 50 plants in pond, which is a lot. I feel like I want to be happy, like growing in pond. I want my plants to be happy, so I want to make sure that I'm doing things right. So I feel like the nutrient solution with growing in pond is probably going to be the biggest issue or the biggest challenge to kind of figure out. So I think it's just going to take time, and the more that I learn, I will definitely share with you guys and everything. I just think it's something, yeah, you just can't learn it overnight. I think it's just going to take time and your routine and what you like to do and what you like to grow in. So I'm just kind of watering over top. My pond is still a bit moist still from when I rinsed it, but I'm just adding those nutrients in here. I think I'll probably add nutrients at half strength, like I was saying, for like a month and then go up to full strength. But I wouldn't necessarily rely on the slow release that's in here, because I think that was my issue. I waited too long to fertilize some of them, and then they got nutrient deficient over a couple months, and then now I'm like trying to catch up. They're trying to like get that balance back. So look how cute this one is. So again, this is the Platinum or Bisma. I got this one from the Green Escape. I think it's gonna love semi-hydro. It has a new growth point right there, and it should produce some corms in some time. I hope it loves pond. It's so cute. So yeah, I'm super excited for this one. So we're gonna move on to some personal questions next so we can finish up this video. It's already after 1 o'clock, which is crazy. I feel like I've been filming this video for a while. I think we will do this one as our last plant and do the personal questions because this one has been bugging me and it's been on my to-do list, so I figured I could knock it out. This is my variegated Maranta. It's not that variegated because a lot of it is reverted. This one had flat mites and it pretty much went dormant. It was growing so well and it was so pretty, and a lot of the growth died, and then it took a while for flat mites to kind of go away. And then a lot of the growth that came in is non-variegated. So I think I want to take some variegated cuttings to restart a new plant with and kind of cut back some of this growth and repot it. This Maranta is my only Maranta that is very crispy. So I don't know what's up with that, the crispy edges. Most of my other Marantas aren't this crispy. I mean, I do get crispiness, but not as much as this one. So I'm wondering if I over fertilized her accidentally, which caused some burning, which is very possible. So yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna see if the cuttings will fit in this jar of water that my Alocasia was in. I rinsed it out and everything. She's in a 5-inch. I'm going to repot her just slightly up to a 6-inch and then take some cuttings and we'll root the cuttings in. Probably just water and then repot the variegated cuttings up in some time once they root. So personal questions. Let's start by taking some cuttings first. I'm gonna try, so I have one strand here that is more variegated, and then I have a strand over here that is a little more variegated. So I'm gonna take a few cuttings. I had several questions about kids. Kids is not really in the cards for us. For those that I guess are new to my channel, I talked about it before, is I had struggled with infertility for a while and it just never happened for us. I just don't really see us having kids anymore because we're older. I mean, I'm like 38. My husband is older than me, and I just feel like at this stage in our life, we've been together 20 years now. We first got together in 2004, so 20 years of just me and him. I feel like having kids now is just, it's not really for us. We enjoy just each other's company, and we enjoy like our cats, and then I have all these plants. I don't feel like I need to have a kid, if that makes sense. I've come to terms with the fact that I've struggled with infertility, and I've been through like treatments before and wasn't successful. I feel like it just wasn't meant to be for us, and I'm okay with that. I have come to terms with that. I feel like I don't really want to bring kids into this world either. I don't know, I'm okay with it. I'm gonna do a big cutting right here. So yes, we have plenty of plants and pets. Have you ever had any pets besides cats and dogs? Growing up, me and my younger sister, we had a guinea pig, but that's pretty much the only animal that I remember having besides cats and dogs. I feel like I've always been around cats and dogs growing up, and then we had another set of cats before these three that my husband and I first got when we got together. And these are our second set of cats. And then of course we had the St. Bernard for almost 12 years. I think if I didn't go to nursing school, I would have done something with animals. They're just amazing little creatures, and I love cats. I love all animals. I have a special place for cats though. So if you don't know Maranta, I'm not really explaining. So the little bumps are nodes. So on the stem, I'm cutting below a bump and it'll root from the node. So I'm just making several cuts in between here. Oh, not plant related, but how would you describe the personality of your 3 cats? Which cat is the silliest? She came in at the right time. So this is Star. She's the most skittish cat, but she is the sweetest. She loves my husband. She adores my husband. She likes me too, but she loves my husband. She purrs so loud. Yeah. So you don't really see her much, I guess because, I don't know, she doesn't really bother me too much while I'm filming. Oh, look, now she's giving me kisses. Oh, I know. You're so sweet. Yeah. But it's the cutest thing. Like, she's also, I feel like she's also the silliest. She's the one that gets the most zoomies. So she will zoom and start the zoomy campaign between the three cats. She and Chai are brother and sister. So she's kind of the silliest. She just runs like crazy. And then Chai is usually the one chasing her around. They're also, you can tell they're siblings too in the way that their mannerisms, like they're always sleeping together. They sleep right next to each other a lot. They play with each other the most. I feel like Luna sometimes gets left out in a way. So I feel like that's why Luna clung on to me more, because these two are together a lot, her and her sibling, and Luna's kind of left out sometimes, which I feel bad about. They still all three play together, but not as much as Chai and Star here. Oh, I know. Yeah. But she loves my husband so much. Whenever he comes home, as soon as she hears the door open, if she could be in a dead sleep in the other room. As soon as she hears the garage door, she comes running and just starts meowing at him, and just like, it's the cutest thing. She cuddles with him. She ignores me. She like, when he's home, she's with him. It's the cutest thing. Sometimes I wonder like who they were in past lives, you know, like did she know him or something in a past life? But she's very sweet. She's goofy. Someone asked about Luna. She's doing better. It's been a year actually since that crazy thing happened with her. It was February when all that started, so it's crazy to look back. You know, she does have the luxating patellas, but I feel like she's still getting around okay and moving around, and she still runs. Chai is the hunter. He will pick up toys and meow, and she does too. Like, she's a little bit of a hunter, but Chai does it the most. He will pick toys up and start like meowing like he catched a bird or something. You are so sweet. She will let you do anything to her. I can cut her nails without any issues. She will just lay there and just be like, okay, just do it. She is so well behaved. Oh, my tummy was growling. Oh, I know. I'm getting hungry. Yeah. You're so sweet. She's so sweet. So these two are a little over 5 now. We adopted them when they were 6 months, and then Luna just turned 4 in January, so she's a year younger than these two. They're so sweet. You're so sweet. Put some more cuttings in here. And I'm going to cut this one again. I'm glad she was in here so you guys could see a bit more of her personality, I guess. Do your neighbors know you are a planty YouTube person? Do they ask for tours or props? I would. So our next door neighbor, we hang out with them a lot. They're the one with the 5 cats, and they know that I'm a planty YouTuber. I'm trying to think. I think when we first met them, you know, we asked like, oh, what do you do for work and stuff like that. So it came up. I feel like it's now out that other people know, like in the community, what I do. This room here faces the street. So there's a street that goes up and down the main part of the community. And so everybody knows me as like the lady with the plants in the window. It's kind of awkward because I'm such a shy person. So I feel like it's weird if someone asks me like what I do. Like, oh, I make videos about plants. So it's kind of weird to bring that up in a way. They're like happy to support, and they'll tell like other people like, oh yeah, she does videos about plants. When we hang out with them again, they'll be like, oh, hey, I got you another follower or something like that. It's very sweet. So yeah, it's not awkward anymore. Like, I'm always awkward when I'm meeting people for the first time. I'm just that way. But now that I've been around them and we've known them for a while now, it's a lot easier for me. But still, sometimes it's just awkward. We love their cats. 4 of them are Maine Coons, and I just adore them all so much. They're just such sweet cats. Their personalities are a lot more like chill, I feel like. And I'm not leaving too much variegated on this plant. I'm kind of cutting some of the crispies away too, just to make it look nicer. We got really lucky to have these neighbors next door. We don't know our other neighbors beside us that well. We don't hang out with them or anything. But very glad to have these neighbors though. We hope they never move away because they're just good people. I love it when your cats make an appearance in your videos. I know, I feel like someone's always showing up. Whenever they hear me in here talking, especially Chai is the one. Chai is the one that hears me in here talking and he goes crazy. I feel like Chai just wants cuddles a lot. He's a cuddler cat along with, you know, Star, but Chai just really loves the attention. I'm still going to buy another variegated Maranta whenever I come across one because I want one that's a lot more variegated. And since this one had its struggles with flat mites, I just feel like getting a healthier one. But I've had Maranta come back and grow. It could be just a little bit dormant too. Love your channel. Not really a question, but a current lighting tour would be super helpful. I should probably do a lighting tour of what my grow lights are. And me personally, I don't really feel like grow lights. I'm not particular to a certain brand. I do have a lot of Barina lights. I think in here it's nice because my plants are, for the most part, getting south-facing light. So it's nice that when it's out, this room gets very bright. Back to the issue of working with brands and sponsors and stuff. I just had some communication that didn't go well with some. So yeah, I don't really see myself working with grow light companies. I was disappointed in one sponsor that didn't work out, but that is okay. But yeah, I will have to do a lighting tour to give you a closer look at the lights that I'm using. I think I do have a video on my channel. It's probably a year old now when I did my houseplant tour. I think I went over some lighting in that video, but it's pretty old though. Not plant related, but I didn't know you're an RN. Can you talk about your RN experience and why you decided to step away? I just graduated nursing school and am a fellow plant lover. So I'll link my last Q&A video down below. I talked way more in depth about nursing because I had several people ask about nursing. I stepped away just because of pandemic stress. It was just too much for me. Bedside nursing just took a toll on me. I did it for 10 years. Bedside nursing is really tough. So much has changed since I first got into nursing and working at the bedside. There's a lot that is put onto the nurse. There's a lot of different specialties I know you can get into and it's better. You just have to find what you enjoy. I just feel like it's not for me anymore. I think I just got mentally checked out, burnt out, and I don't want to feel that way again. I just was not in a good place in my life and it just really stressed me out. But yeah, if I have to go back, like I said, I can, but I'm not really sure. This kind of leads on to the next question. Someone asked about my goals. What are your top 5 life goals? We talked about children in the store, travel, another degree. Absolutely love your channel. Thank you so much. Thank you for such calming content. Wishing you nothing but happiness and success. Thank you so much. I honestly was interested in taking some horticultural classes. It would be something I would honestly be interested in some time if I feel like I want to learn more about the science of everything. I feel like it would be beneficial. I just don't feel like I have the time for that right now. Maybe once my little shop is open and I have a routine going, if I feel like I need more. The thing is I like doing YouTube, but I feel like, I don't know, I may branch out and do another niche of something else other than plants because the plant community is only so big, and I feel like after the pandemic, those that are left are the ones that still really like and enjoy plants, or you have those that are trying to do it, as a content creator type of thing. I feel like it's hard to do this as a job, content creation in the plant niche, unless you're doing other stuff in a sense, because there's only so many brands to work with, and if you're not working with brands, it's really hard. And I feel like you just have to sell a lot, and it's not something that I want to do. I'd rather sell or be my own brand, Oh, there's a new spike coming up, so that's good. I feel like a lot of my Maranta went dormant, but I do have another spike coming in, so maybe it will grow more variegated in some time. I definitely just wanted to get it repotted though. I like to cut away all the crispy edges. So yeah, maybe I'll start a different channel, like a second channel, and just do more lifestyle content. I always thought I would do more vlogging, but I'm kind of a private person. There's a lot that I don't share in my day-to-day, but then sometimes I feel like I'm not really that interesting of a person because I am home a lot because I'm an introvert. So other than being on the computer and editing a lot and doing plant care, my life isn't that interesting. I don't know. I don't know long term. I'm constantly thinking about the future, and it's something that I stress over every day because I've never worked for myself before. You know, this is all new to me, and I stress about it a lot because I don't know where it's going to lead and what the future of houseplants has. You know, I'm not really sure. Like, are years from now, are people going to be watching YouTube? I feel like influencer marketing is kind of reaching a point where it's a lot. I feel like people just don't want to be sold to all the time. Look at the root system on that. You see the little rhizome potato things? This one isn't overly root bound. I just wanted to go ahead and upsize it. I think this was in my other old mix too with the leca, which I didn't really like. So I'm just kind of removing some of this old soil. But I'm not going to mess with the roots too much because Maranta and Calethi and stuff can shock quite a bit. So I think right now I'm just kind of focused on the present, maybe like this year. I would love to eventually like have my plant shop, like I said, and focus on that and doing YouTube for the time being. Maybe eventually take some courses. I don't think I would ever have like a brick or mortar shop. That would require me to be there. I just don't know where all this is going to lead, but I am worried. I'm worried about this as like a future job because I feel like YouTube probably isn't, I don't know how stable YouTube will be over time. So I'm not really sure. Travel, I'm a homebody and I don't like to be gone more than a few days. So we do have places we want to go travel and see. Like I want to go to Hawaii and other places. We've never really been overseas, but I would love to do more traveling like in the future if it's in the cards for us. If not, I am totally okay with being a homebody and being home because I love being home. Whenever I'm away for too long, like more than a couple days, like I want to go back home. I just see plants in my future though. I spent the last 4 years with houseplants and I couldn't imagine not doing something with plants now. So I feel like if anything, plants are still always going to be in my future. Whether or not I go back to like a 9 to 5 or not, I feel like I'm still always going to be doing something with plants. I love your channel. You have an absolute amazing personality. Thank you. I wondered what your non-planty goals are for the future. Non-planty, I want to start being more active. That's something that has been a little on the back burner since I'm working from home now. I'm a lot less active than I used to be. I would love to get into like more hobbies other than plants. Like I want to get back into like painting and drawing again. I kind of miss that. I would love to pick up something else other than just like plants and social media all the time. Yeah, it's just hard to shut that off sometimes. I feel like I'm always thinking about social media and everything. I don't know. I feel like my husband's really busy since he's working 2 jobs right now, and I would love us to be able to like spend more time together and do more things together. I feel like that's kind of been on the back burner a little bit. It's been hard for him trying to get a new job. And with me trying to start a little plant shop on the side, I feel like we're both just like really busy and we haven't spent as much time together. So I would love for us to be able to do more things together, just be happy with our careers and everything, and then just do more things that we want to do together. She's cute though. She's a little bit less straggly looking. She's not that variegated now. Maybe some new spikes will grow variegated, but I took a lot of the variegated growth off. So once these root, I have to fill this up with water to the top. I'll plant those back up and hopefully whatever grows won't be reverted on that one. And then I'll just keep this as like another Maranta plant in my collection. So yeah, I'm just kind of taking it day by day. Month by month and just kind of seeing where all this goes. But I hope I can do something like this with plants for a while and be able to do it for a job long term. Okay, I had to change my battery one last time. So that is that one. I have to water this in yet. And the props, And then my mic is dying too, so I think it's time to end this. But thank you for all the questions. Just thank you for being here and supporting. Just watching is just the biggest way to support my channel, and it just means so much to me that you are here, and just thank you for your comments, your support. It truly does mean so much to me, and I'm truly grateful to be able to do this right now. I really hope you enjoyed this Q&A. I know it was a long one. But I appreciate all your questions. I'll probably do another one, maybe in like 2 to 3 months, we'll do another Q&A. But I really enjoy these. I get to tackle a lot of projects that are overdue while I get to answer some questions. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you again here soon.